Yadam Shavida Pracharanti Karmasu Naivanya Daloham Iva Prataptam Staneshu Tadrastra Padeshameti. Translation. As iron has the power to burn when made red hot in the association of fire, so the body, senses, living force, mind, and intelligence, although merely lumps of matter, can function in their activities when infused with a particle of consciousness by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As iron cannot burn unless heated by fire, the bodily senses cannot act unless favored by the Supreme Brahman. Purport. Red-hot iron can burn, but it cannot burn the original fire. Therefore, the consciousness of the small particle of Brahman is fully dependent on the power of the Supreme Brahman. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Matta smitir jnanam apohanam cha. From me, the conditioned soul receives memory, knowledge, and forgetfulness. The power for activities comes from the Supreme Lord, and when the Lord withdraws this power, the conditioned soul no longer has energy with which to act through his various senses. The body includes 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, 5 active senses, and the mind. But actually, these are merely lumps of matter. For example, the brain is nothing but matter. But when electrified by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the brain can act just as iron can burn when made red-hot by the influence of fire. The brain can act while we are awake or even while we are dreaming, but when we are fast asleep or unconscious, the brain is inactive. Since the brain is a lump of matter, it does not have independent power with which to act. It can act only when favored by the influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is Brahman or Param Brahman. This is the way to understand how the Supreme Brahman, Krishna, is present everywhere, just as the sunshine is present because of the sun god in the sun globe. The Supreme Lord is called Rishikesha. He is the only conductor of the senses. Unless empowered by his energy, our senses cannot act. In other words, he is the only seer, the only worker, the only listener, and the only active principle or supreme controller. Dehendriya prana mano diyomi yadamrsha vidhak pracharanti karmasu naivanyada lauham iva prataptam spaneshu tadrashtra padeshameti. As iron has the power to burn when made red hot in the association of fire, so the body, senses, living force, mind, and intelligence, although merely lumps of matter, can function in their activities when infused with a particle of consciousness by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As iron cannot burn unless heated by fire, the bodily senses cannot act unless favored by the Supreme Brahman. So Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, Brahmanohama Pratishta. The Brahman is the expansion of Krishna's energy within which everything rests. But Brahman itself rests within Krishna. Everything rests in Krishna. Just as pearls are strung on a thread. Sutre maniguna iva. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the resting place of all creation. In fact, Lord Chaitanya described him as the reservoir of all ingredients. There are so many ingredients in this material world, but Krishna is the reservoir of all these ingredients. He is the one from whom all these material elements emanate. That is also part of Brahman. Baladev Vijabhushana makes the distinction very clear between Sagun Brahman and Nirgun Brahman. That spiritual expansion of Krishna's energy, which is strictly of the Paraprakriti, as explained last night, the spiritual energy, and that expansion of Krishna's energy which takes on material qualities. That's called Saguna Brahman. Guna means quality. Nir means without. But when we use the word guna, we generally use that word to refer to material qualities. Guna, just like the Triguna. Shibir, Gunamayayar, Bhavayar. The guna. We refer to this material energy. The material qualities. So when the Veda speaks of nirguna, actually the Veda is discussing that which is of the spiritual nature, not that which has no quality. Because the quality of qualitylessness does not exist. Everything has quality of some form or another. The materialists who are using spiritual life to prove their point of being God, Mayavadi class of men, use this point to try to prove that Brahman has no quality. It is the oneness, and you are Brahman. When you merge into Brahman, you become that one. But we do not find that this is stated anywhere in the Vedic literature like that. This is the interpretation given by Shankaracharya in order to take people away from the Buddhistic path and establish them somehow in a Vedic path, but with the understanding that they are ultimately God. It is all one. Covered Buddhism. Covered Buddhism. It is actually the same thing as Buddhism. Buddhism says it's all nothing. Mayavad says it's all one. So they both say it's the same. They're both speaking about that all-pervasive aspect of the Supreme, whereby someone may not see the quality that is already existing there. If you do not see the quality, this does not mean that the quality doesn't exist. You may not see the quality, but that does not mean it doesn't exist. Just like sometimes in our relationships between each other, we may not be able to see the qualities which are there. Each of us may not be able to understand the qualities in another person. This is generally the situation. So, we tend to think there's no good quality, whereas that quality may not have manifested at the present moment. And that is therefore the business of the spiritual master, to bring out those, what we say, dormant qualities, potential qualities. The quality is there, but you cannot see it now because it is not manifested. This is an important point because every person, especially devotee, has some good qualities, believe it or not. And those good qualities can be utilized by one who knows the art of using good qualities. First of all, you have to see that quality, even if nobody else can see it. And then one has to develop that quality by fanning it. Just like one fans a little spark to make it into a big fire. Our whole Krishna consciousness movement is based on the principle of fanning a little spark of attraction to Krishna and turning it into a big fire of attraction for Krishna. So, we have to see the dormant quality. In some people, the quality is very dormant, extremely covered. In others, it is less covered. But that is not to say it's not there, because every living being fits within, or a human being, one of the 4 categories of qualities: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Therefore, somebody's got something to offer to the society. Everybody has got something to offer to the society. Even if it's a very simple work, or for some, more intellectual work, for others, more administrative work, everybody's got something to offer in the society. And according to his quality, he should give whatever he can, as much as he can, as nicely as he can. And this will expand his Krishna consciousness when he utilizes his dormant qualities in the service of the Supreme Lord. So, everybody has got quality, because Krishna says, Chaturvanya Maya Shristam Gunakarma Vibhagasha. These 4 distinctive occupational duties are created by me. Everybody fits within them. But one may not see one's particular quality at any given moment, because it may be covered by so many other forces. But upon recognizing one's quality, one can draw out the good aspects, and that automatically diminishes the negative aspects. There are 2 ways in which you can accomplish something. You can, if you have some problem, you can attack the negative aspects. Or you can expand the positive aspects. In other words, it may not be always possible to tell somebody, you have this problem, you have that problem, therefore you are no good. He may not accept, he may not like to hear, it may not be a completely correct analysis, and thus the person will not accept it. But if one expands the positive aspect, then it is possible to overcome the negative by simply flooding it out with good quality. Therefore, we try to expand one's gift or offering that he makes to Krishna and get him to do it more and more, and automatically the lesser qualities will diminish, or the bad qualities will diminish. But nobody can say he's got no quality. Everybody has a quality, because we are living within a framework of quality. First of all, our body is made of material elements and ingredients. And each and every one of those material ingredients has got quality. For instance, if we just look around the room, whatever we see has got color. There's nothing without color. Nothing that has form that is without color. Air, for instance, has not got form. It is only, we can hear If it blows, we can feel it, but there is no form. We cannot see it. But that which has got form has got color. Everything which has form has got color. Yeah. Or it may be transparent, but then it takes the color of that which it is reflecting, or which is allowing us to see through to some other object. It takes that color. There is no situation of something being colorless, unless, of course, you are in the darkness. That does not mean that things have no color, but you are not able to see the color, because the eye is dependent on light. So this is a very good example right here. The light, for instance, at night when it's a dark moon and there's no light outside and the light is not on in the house, we cannot see any of the colors in this room. But as soon as we turn the light on or the sun comes up, immediately all the colors manifest. Logically, this means that the color is there. But when the darkness comes, we cannot see it, because our eye is dependent on light. In a similar way, there is quality everywhere throughout the entirety of the creation. Everywhere there is quality. But I may not be able to see it due to the deficiencies in my perceptive ability. Just like darkness may be there, and that keeps me from understanding particular colors, well, similarly, ignorance, which is just like darkness, ignorance is darkness in the intellect. So, ignorance may be there, and because of ignorance, I cannot see that there is quality. Or I may be blinded by the effulgence of Brahman, and I also cannot see quality. Just like if one is in a dark room, and then all of a sudden, let's say you are in a specially sealed room, no light can come in, and you're there for a long time. Then all of a sudden you open the door and it's a full noon, bright sunny day, sunshine everywhere. Your eyes, because they are not able to adjust to the light, will immediately contract to such a degree you won't be able to see anything. Yeah. Well, rather, they will be open to such a degree that all this light will come in and blind you, and then when they gradually contract, then you'll be able to see a little better. So, although the capacity to see is there, it has been blinded by certain conditions. So we have two possibilities of not seeing. One is when you're in ignorance or darkness, and the other is when you're initially exposed to light. Both will destroy the possibility to see or perceive. Therefore, the materialist, gross materialist, who cannot understand anything about spiritual life, he cannot see or understand properly the qualities of the spiritual nature. But also, the Mayavadi, or those who are simply interested in Brahman, because they are generally in Maya, when they do get a perception of the spiritual energy, they are blinded by the Brahman effulgence. And again, they cannot see properly the quality. Therefore, in the Ishopanishad, we hear the statement, Hiranmayena patrena satyasya pihitam mukham. that when the devotee is praying, when I am bewildered and blinded by the Brahman effulgence, my dear Lord, please allow me to see past that effulgence and view your transcendental face. Mukham. Satyadharmaya Drustaye. I want to see that transcendental form, the real face of the Lord. That word face is specifically used. Although it is speaking of the effulgence, it refers to face. When I see past the effulgence, when I see beyond this effulgence which has blinded me, I want to see your transcendental form, eternal form. So the quality is there beyond that blinding effulgence. That blinding effulgence is also a quality. Therefore, there's no question of being qualityless. It is the quality of effulgence of the Supreme. Just like the light bulb has quality of effulgence. You don't, when you speak of the light bulb, especially if it's in the on condition, you don't simply speak of that glass which got some vacuum inside and some tungsten and coiled and this and that. So you don't just speak of the light bulb, you speak of the effect of the electricity in the light bulb as well, which illuminates this wire, which becomes very bright, and thus the effulgence of light is part and parcel of the bulb. The quality of the light bulb also includes the quality of the effulgence of the bulb itself. So the effulgence is a quality of the bulb. You cannot say that the effulgence is quality-less. No. Similarly, Brahman is actually a quality of the Supreme. It is his effulgence. When you speak of Brahmajyoti, that is the effulgence of Krishna. So, Brahman itself is a quality. What is the question of qualitylessness? Brahman itself is quality, and when we speak of Brahman in terms of sagun, again this means here this material existence which is also emanating from Krishna. It has quality as well. Colors are there, tastes are there, sounds are there, forms are there, different touches are there, aromas are there. Therefore there's no question of speaking of Saguna Brahman and having qualitylessness. Everywhere there's quality. And in the Nirgun Brahman, either you are speaking of Krishna, Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's paraphernalia, Krishna's associates, Krishna's words, philosophy, name, his form. You are speaking of quality there. And if one simply wants to speak of the Brahman effulgence, he's speaking of another quality of Krishna, Krishna's effulgent quality. So what is the question of nirguna, without quality, referring to some situation in the so-called transcendence where there is no quality? Because even in the transcendental realm, there is quality everywhere. However, there is another situation whereby the Sagun Brahman will not manifest the quality of life without the inclusion. In other words, unless Nirgun Brahman enters into it. That is what is being discussed in this verse. That, ordinarily speaking, you cannot manifest the quality of life force, which also refers to the intelligence, it refers to the life symptoms, it refers to matter becoming animated as if it was living force, unless one speaks of the entrance of Brahman within each and every body. Brahman, you are Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. That the Mayavadis take to mean that they are the entire of Brahman. Or another Vedic aphorism, Tattvamasi. You are that. Om Tat Sat. Tattvamasi. You are the same as that. In other words, they take it to mean that you are Brahman in total. The complete Brahman. But why? It never says anywhere in the Vedic literatures, you, the living entity, are the entirety Brahman. Nowhere is that statement. It says, certainly, you are Brahman, because you are. You are a small portion of Brahman. Then they say Brahman cannot be divided. That is true. Just like in Bhagavad Gita, it says, na chejoham, na klejoham, na chejoham, Anyway, the soul cannot be cut, cannot be beaten, withered by the wind, burned, but it cannot be cut because it's indivisible. So they take that to mean that Brahman cannot be divided. Therefore, how can we speak of a part of Brahman? It somewhat makes sense, no? That Brahman cannot be divided, so how can we speak of a part of Brahman? Therefore, you can only speak of the entirety Brahman. Therefore, you cannot talk in terms of the individual soul. Therefore, your idea that the soul is part of Brahman is false, because the soul is the entirety of Brahman, because Brahman cannot be divided. This is an example of the utilization of logic to prove something which is completely contradictory to that which is supposedly stated. You can do that if you want. What is the problem with this statement? Because number one, we are eternally Krishna's parts and parcels. We were not divided. If we were at one point all one chunk, and then Krishna came along with a knife and cut us up into little pieces, then this argument would be true. They would be right. You can't take a chunk of Brahman and cut it. But that's not what happened. Because we are eternally Krishna's parts and parcels. In other words, Brahman is made of infinite numbers of parts and parcels of Krishna. So their whole argument does not stand. They say Brahman cannot be made up of so many individual parts and parcels. And we say, why not? Because they say Brahman is one. we say yes, one in quality. And in quantity, it is everything. But that does not mean that it is all the same. That you don't find, that in Veda, Brahman is stated to be. Everything is the same. Everything is exactly the same as everything else. This statement is not made in Veda. Statements are made of the oneness of Brahman, but they take these statements and do what is called interpretative logic. Interpolative logic. They take it and interpolate. They take some point and twist it into some other conclusion. But this is false logic. You cannot take the Vedic points and twist them as you like. The Vedic points exist as absolutes beyond our tricky logic. You cannot say that Brahman has no quality simply because someone has said it is one, or even Veda has said it is one. Because there are many examples in logic of things being one yet different simultaneously, even here in this manifested platform. Just like the race of mankind is one, man. But that does not mean every person is exactly the same as every other person. Even mathematically speaking, one, strictly speaking, does not equal one. Because this one on this side of the equation is on this side of the equal sign, and that one is on that side of the equal sign. They occupy two different places. So this one is not the same as that one, because this one is over here and that one is over there. As a concept, one does equal one. That means they both have the same value. One book may equal one book if it's the same book. But it's obviously not the same book because this book's over here, that book's over there. This book belongs to me, and that book belongs to you. So it is not that they are the same, but rather that they are equivalent. You might have paid the same amount of money for them. You might have the same exact amount of pages. But still, these two books will not be the same. One book will have some mark here. One book will have some mark there. Because I know from printing, you never get the exact same thing on every page. Everything's moving, little ink is flowing. You'll get differences in each and every page. And the paper is not the same. Some paper has one little piece hanging there, another paper has a piece hanging there. So, one book does not equal one book. It's like in school, they teach you, don't mix addition of apples and oranges. They say 2 oranges plus 2 oranges is 4 oranges. But you cannot add 2 oranges and 2 apples. Now they may also tell you 1 orange equals 1 orange, to just show you something about this equivalency business. But does 1 orange ever equal the other orange? Do 2 oranges weigh exactly the same? If you use a really fine scale, exactly the same? And if they weigh the same amount, do they have the same exact juice in them? Do they have the same number of pits? And are the pits in the same place? Do they look exactly the same? Of course not. Oh, maybe if you test 85 billion oranges, you might find 2, if you were nuts enough to do that, which were exactly the same in every respect. Maybe. That's a theory. Who knows? So, these points are meant to show the logical fallacy of saying that if something is equal to something else, it is exactly the same. It's not so. You can be Brahman and still be different simultaneously. As we know from mathematics, from physics, from logic and reason, from social relationship. It's an obvious principle, but one which is not accepted by Mayavadis simply because they blind themselves like this. I don't want to see. So, you are Brahman, that's all right. But you are little Brahman, he is little Brahman, he is little Brahman. And when that little Brahman enters into the body gets life. The elements are also Brahman, but why is it that these elements have no life unless the spirit spark enters into it? If these bodily elements are also Brahman, then they should also have life. They should also have all consciousness. They should also be the supreme. Why isn't the microphone supreme? They say because it is simply illusion. But you are not illusion. But I can take the microphone and hit you on the head and tell you, don't worry, it didn't happen. There's no microphone. There's no head. There's no lump. There's no blood streaming down the front of your face. It's all illusion. And I would suppose you'd have to believe it. So therefore we find there are many problems with this philosophy. Even the Mayavadi themselves do not believe these philosophies exactly, as you can prove by just taking anybody's wallet and telling him, your money, my money, it's the same, in your pocket, my pocket, it's all one, and see what he says. Tell him, can I please take the keys to your car? Yes, now just sign this paper that says you have given it to me. It's all one, isn't it? Whether that signature is on this piece of paper or that piece of paper, the car's in your name or my name, the house is yours or mine, your wife, you can give me that too. Just sign it all over. It doesn't matter, it's all one. He will not accept. He will get very angry and storm away. In the same logic, the Mayavadi can be shown to be false in almost every single one of his points. And those few points which do not fall down under such logic, there are other logical points which defeat them too. Mayavadi philosophy cannot stand in the face of simple principles. The number one principle being that everything comes from Krishna and everything is within Krishna all the time. And that entirety of energy is called Brahman. But Krishna is superior to Brahman inasmuch as he is its support. He is its source. And yet, it's always existing eternally. You cannot really speak of the creation because there is no creation. It's always existing. And at this point, the human brain fries into little pieces. Therefore, we shall not continue this line of logic. So, don't feel bad or think there's something wrong if you can't understand everything. Try and become a little humble. The materialist, when he thinks there's something he can't understand or something someone can't explain, namely the inconceivable nature of the existence, then he thinks there's something wrong with that, and better I go out and gratify my senses. This is the nature of fools. When there's something they don't understand, they think it's all wrong, and they go out and have sex life. They think, yes, this is the proof that I'm my body and I should enjoy my senses. And an intelligent man becomes humble before such an awesome display of unlimited power and potency. So we are trying to train up some humble people who will become a little submissive to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engage themselves in His transcendental loving service with all their heart and soul and mind, and give up the attachments to the material nature, especially to the body and mind, and engage fully in Krishna's service eternally. Hare Krishna.